Hello Internet, I'm Jackie Fox, and today I'm going to be breaking down one of the most requested weapon types, and maybe one of the more elusive ones. There aren't a lot of units that use piercing weapons, but we've gotten a lot of magic piercing weapons recently, or magic piercing characters recently, to the point where this has become kind of one of the weapons that has a magical physical split. Which is interesting because that doesn't happen for a lot, and this really just kind of popped up overnight, but there are a number of different selections for those units, so we'll cover that as well in this video. But first, let's talk about the legendary Reliquary's weapon, the Dragon's Whisker. This has 172 for its attack stat with 20 accuracy, which is quite good, as well as 5 critical with pierce attack and accuracy of 20. This is going to be really stacking accuracy on the unit, which is just great, in addition to the highest pierce attack value that we're going to see for these. But it's also going to decrease AoE resistance before dealing damage only when your HP is below 60%. So after taking damage, you become very much more capable of wiping the field with AoE damage. Just imagine, because this implies, like, if this is going to really help, you're doing AoE damage more consistently with this character. So you're not just getting this debuff on one person because your HP is low. No, you're getting it probably on at least 2. So just a lot of really good potential for AoE damage, and basically AoE resistance penetration is kind of how this works out to be. Even though it's only 10, that is something interesting. But really, I like this spear just for being the most accurate spear by far. And you know, that's something that these other spears don't have, and this really stacks it on in both directions. Hey, thank you for tuning in. If you think that this video and this concept is great, then I want you to like and subscribe so that you can see more. Okay, back to the content. Spear, which has a little bit more attack power. In fact, a lot of these are going to have more attack power than the legendary Reliquary's weapon. Really, it was more of an accuracy spear anyways, but it's got 176 attack, which is just a little bit more, but much like the Estrella Aurora and what I said about it with the swords, having 5 agility as just a stat on this is worthy of, you know, real serious consideration. It also has 9 accuracy, which, while it isn't the 20 of the Dragon's Whisker and doesn't have a passive to back it up, that is still quite a lot for a raw stat accuracy, making this one of the more accurate spears, even though the running for that isn't amazing. Although there is another one that we'll talk about later, it's just a little bit more specific. The Holy Lance +6 is one of these spears to get its +6 form already that's not, say, elementally inclined. Like, there's the Elemental Lance, and there's also the Ice Lance, I believe, that have +6s. But this is the +6 Vanilla Spear. With 198 attack, it nearly breaks 200, 5 accuracy, 5 critical is actually a little good. Like, usually when you see a good main stat like that, you see something like we're going to see on the next 2 spears in terms of supporting stats, but 5 and 5 is pretty decent. Neither are great, but decent. 20 defense penetration, so this is going to be our defense penetration lance, but you're also going to get pierce attack of 10, which is nice, but really one of the big things that this one is going to do is going to be your undead killer lance, which makes it highly niche in a lot of ways, but I did want to include it on this list because by far it has the highest attack stat of the vanilla lances so far, but it's kind of just waiting on one of these other guys maybe to get their +6 form before that status quo is ruptured. Next we have the Platinum Lance. The Platinum Lance, I put an asterisk on because this is going to be a lance that's going to get a lot more benefits for specific and often older classes, but It's also a pretty good lance on its own, so I wanted to show it kind of against just the other vanilla lances. 167 attack is actually the lowest, I think, anywhere on this list, unfortunately, but it's going to make it up more with its passives, and we'll get to those fully in a second. But 3 accuracy, 4 crit, kind of middling, but okay. Pierce attack 15 is okay, and initial AP 20. Decent. It's a decent spear. It's slightly better, I would say, than the Stoss spear, even, again, without the bonuses that we're going to talk about in a second. Has 168 attack, 5 accuracy, which is okay, but 3 crit, not great. And then pierce attack and pierce attack resistance penetration of 10. So it's going to be your pierce attack resistance penetration spear. It's not as big a deal for spears because there's not as much pierce resistance, but there is some, so if that's something that you need to cope with, the Stoss spear is here for you, even though it's probably the weakest of these spears by far. Again, I usually kind of rank them in terms of usefulness when I list them like this. So next group is going to be spears that have extra abilities, extra passives that are unlocked for Dragoons, Lancers, Trick Lancers, Purple Fairies, and others. There's actually quite a few on the Platinum Lance. It really raises the bar for a lot of different Lance type units, and let's get started with the Winged Lance. Now, unfortunately, the attack on this one is fairly low, and just kidding when I said the Platinum Lance had the lowest attack, I completely forgot about this. 139 is pretty bad. However, it has 20 accuracy, which in terms of raw stats ties it with the Dragon's Whisker for most accurate spear, but also 19 critical, which is surprisingly, you would think spears would be better with critical, by far. In fact, like, you could probably take all of the spears I've mentioned so far, add up the crit on each of them together, and still only get to about here. So this has as much crit on it as all of the ones before it combined. In addition to that, it's a pierce attack 20 spear, so it's got the highest pierce attack modifier possible. But if you are one of the 4 classes that I mentioned earlier, you're also going to get 30% attack, which is definitely going to even out that low attack stat or low raw attack offering, to the point where this is probably one of the higher attack modifiers, or one of the higher big attack numbers you're going to get. Also pretty general, so if they have any sub jobs with alternate damage types, this is pretty helpful. And then another critical damage 15. Now this primarily, except for Trick Lancers, which get kind of a good deal here, but that's what, like Winter Luartha or MacLeod, who already has the Ice Lance. But for these classes, this is really, really good in a lot of ways, although maybe you're running the Dragon's Whisker instead for other reasons. If you don't have access to the Winged Lance, you also have the Platinum Lance. Now, we've already talked about most of its stats already, but you're additionally going to get a reaction block rate 30 in addition to all of that, and this is inclusive of a lot of people. And this is a pretty handy extra bonus, but actually it feels kind of weak in terms of an added bonus like this. But to be fair, there are some decent passives on this already. I mean, it just gives it a lot of things that it does and a lot of people that it can be useful for. It's kind of a good all-around spear, even though it doesn't really excel in many different directions. And it's pretty easy to get your hands on, and will eventually have a +6 form that will be pretty excellent, probably. Then we have the Glaive of Emptiness. In its attack form, it has 169 nice attack. It has 3 accuracy, 3 critical, pierce and magic attack +10, which is pretty low. We haven't seen a pierce attack of 10 since the defense penetration spear, the Holy Lance. Pretty much every and also the Stoss spear, sorry. Holy Lance and the Stoss spear only have a pierce attack of 10, so that's not great. Magic attack of 10 is if you have magic attacks on your spear wielding character, which is really only 2 new and, you know, important characters in the meta, but 2 overall that can really benefit from this. It also, just to point out, whereas the other ones have included Purple Fairy, this one does not. Just pointing that out. Instead of Purple Fairy, it's going to be accessible by Dialdo. But if you are, but the benefit here for Dragoons, Lancers, Trick Lancers, and Dialdo is that unlike other spears, it is unique in offering both Human Killer of 10 and Area Attack Resistance of 8. Both of those are fucking incredible. Getting both of those together is just great. And while this is more primarily a magic-based spear, it does have a respectable attack value for its assault build. And while the other modifiers aren't really here for a lot of types of damage, Human Killer is incredibly versatile. And AoE resistance is pretty nice to be able to get on a spear, or on your weapon in general. Just kind of another way that you can stack this in if your other gear doesn't have access to this kind of thing. Then, if you are a magic spear user, you could also consider the magic on the Dragon's Whisker is also 172. You still have that amazing accuracy, as well as your pierce attack modifier being pretty much maxed out for a weapon, in addition to the AoE resistance penetration when your HP is below 60. This is pretty much a good option for either of the magic spear using characters. However, each of them has their own unique spear that is going to give them a pretty cool benefit for themselves, such as the Glaive of Emptiness for Dialdo, we just mentioned it, and the Divine Horn for Jaden the Celebrated. Although that's really just the only magic and it's the only like magic ice spear. So his is even more particular, and that's the reason I didn't mention it here. It has nice elemental resistances as its unique set of passives, but those are exclusively unlocked by ice units, and I made a point to not having elemental spears on here. And as you have noticed, there are 2 elemental spears for ice, so there is a little bit of competition, except that I don't think the other one has like a magic build, so you wouldn't really be equipping it to your Jaden. But I think for Jaden, especially if you want to go offensive, you probably want to go with the Dragon's Whisker for that purpose, instead of the Divine Horn, as I really feel like the Divine Horn is a lot more of a defensive spear, and I don't really see a big benefit to using the Glaive of Emptiness because you aren't getting the most important and most impactful parts of it, which would be the Human Killer 10 and the AoE resistance of 8. Even though it is magic based and does have a magic attack modifier on it, which would be useful for Jaden, I really don't think it's really the thing for him. That's very low on his priorities in terms of spears. And then the Divine Horn feels really specific to Jaden himself as well. Although I guess maybe like McLeod would like an assault build of it, but again, this is elementally limited and that's not what we're talking about here. So, thank you for tuning in, and I really appreciate it. I was telling myself that I was gonna say this a little bit earlier in the video, so maybe I'll just go back in time and insert the following. Hey, thank you for tuning in. If you think that this video and this concept is great, then I want you to like and subscribe so that you can see more. Okay, back to the content. And also, now that you're here at the end, definitely like and subscribe if you haven't already. Come on, I've already told you to, what, twice now? But in addition to that, check out that link in the description that's going to lead you to the remainder of the Jackie Fox Media Empire, being podcasts, videos on various channels, as well as having books available for you to purchase and to read. I should have a new one coming out soon as well. It's going to be the beginning of a series that I hope to have out over the next year. And, well, hopefully you're excited about that. Again, all of these things will be in the link in the description, so go check that out. There will be ways to contact me, like getting in touch with me via Discord, but also ways to, you know, hang out, play games, and even donate to the channel if that's what you would like to do. So with all of that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you understand spears a bit better, and if you do, really let them know down in the comments so people know that this video is worthy of their time. So thank you for hanging out. I'll see you in the next one. Rosie, can you eat that pussy a little quieter, girl? Jesus Christ, you really got into it, didn't you? Yeah, don't lick my hand.